Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's your boy Shockwave48 here. Welcome back to another reaction video. And today we got some more new information of what's going on in My Hero Academia Season 6. Now, we're only for like at least 2 weeks, or maybe, yeah, two weeks away. And, we're already getting settled. We've seen all their movies, so we're pretty much at the part where they end up in battle. And of course, we already know that Deku's arrived. He's about to take out Shikaraki. Everything else is going as planned. It's just going as smoothly as possible. But as things continue on, things are about to get even crazier. So we're going to look at this little video, what we get out of it, what's going on in this chapter, alright? So without further ado, let's get right to it.
Because of the heroes shuffling the villains around, we've gotten to a very interesting place in My Hero Academia, and let me tell you why. In this video, we're going to talk about an odd discrepancy going on the battlefield in the final war arc of My Hero Academia's manga, and answering the question of, will All For One and Deku meet again before the end of My Hero Academia? Now, if you think about all the different battlefields in My Hero Academia, characters are shuffled around in a rather interesting way. But now that we're sort of in what seems to be the final stages of this arc, the question really has to be asked whether certain characters are going to meet other characters before the story is over. I'm sure number one that a lot of people think about is Endeavor going to lose to All For One before Dabi gets there? Or are Dabi and Endeavor's stories really going to end in two separate places? Maybe they'll meet again in like an epilogue or something, but really, like, we're not going to see the resolution between Endeavor and Dabi during this like conflict? That's a little odd to a lot of people. And another one of those circumstances is All For One, of course, because as important as it is for Endeavor to be fighting the number one villain, right? The number one hero to be taking on the biggest villain of all time. That makes sense. I also definitely feel like All For One wants to head over to Shigaraki's area, right? And help out against Deku. Now, I know that Endeavor and Hawks are going to do everything in their power to stop that from happening, but I mean, he's infinitely rewinding, right? Like, they can't really hurt him or do anything to him. He has access to all of his quirks. I do expect everyone in that area to, like, very shortly not really be a factor. Because it does seem like Horikoshi over the last few arcs has been killing the top 10 heroes, right? Like, he's definitely been taking them down. We lost Crust, Oroimusha quit. They've either quit or been maimed or retired, right? We have the situation going on with Mirko. Hawks is pretty much out of feathers. Endeavor's lost an arm. Like,
Whoa.
The top 10 heroes after this giant war arc is going to be radically different, and I'm sure that's another video we could do and talk about who the top 10 heroes are likely going to be. But the core question here, again, is will All For One and Deku meet again? And I do think that All For One is going to figure out a way to go over to the Shigaraki area, right? But I think an easier way for this all to kind of happen, because there are a lot of characters that are in different places that I think eventually do want to end up in the same place. One solution would be exactly what Spinner's mission is in this war arc. Now, if you forget, Spinner is trying to break out Kurogiri. As one of the core members of the League of Villains, Spinner is not happy to allow Kurogiri to rot captured by the heroes, and he also knows that Shigaraki misses Kurogiri, right? And if he gets Kurogiri back, maybe that'll do something for Shigaraki. Maybe that'll help him in some sort of way to sort of come back to his senses. And I mean, I also don't feel like Kurogiri's story is over, you know? Like, I didn't get the impression from that last time that we saw Kurogiri that there would be nothing else in that storyline, whether or not Shirakumo was going to be saved from within Kurogiri, whether or not, like, Shigaraki and Kurogiri are going to meet again. Like, it'd be very odd to me if those two just never meet again after the midway point in the series, pretty much, right? That'd be very strange. So I definitely do think we are going to see Kurogiri loose again, and if that happens, then it's kind of just like an open battlefield, right? Because as much as Monoma can't open portals to send people to different areas, like, he can't bring Endeavor here and have him like retreat to the base and get some healing or something. He can't teleport people to the hospital or anything like that because of the risk of other villains coming through. If Kurogiri gets loose, everyone's just gonna be in one location again, right? I think he's gonna teleport to UA, then teleport to the various battlefields, and then he's just gonna bring everyone to the same place. Because I have a hard time believing that we're not all gonna end up in the same place by the end of this war arc, instead of just being in loose separate battlefields, right? Because that is kind of how it ended up in the USJ arc, which this arc is mimicking, right? Everyone fought in their own individual areas, then they eventually got back to the center area, and then All Might had the fight against the giant All Might kind of anti-All Might Nomu, and he sent it flying and saved the day, and that was it for the USJ arc. So I do think a very similar situation is going to happen here, right? Where kind of everyone ends up in the same place while Deku is still fighting Shigaraki, or while Deku is fighting All For One, or whatever is going to happen there. But this is where I think things start to get really interesting, right? Because there's multiple theories about how the series could end, how Deku is going to deal with Shigaraki. Let's say Deku saves Shigaraki, right? Let's say he saves Tenko, and Tenko gets control of his body and has access to All For One, or maybe doesn't, he just has decay. That's fine, right? If All For One does come up to UA or go wherever everyone's going to end up and does come for Deku, and he sees that, oh, you freed Shigaraki. Okay, that's fine. I can fix that. I can undo what you did. Come here. I'll rewind him. You know, I'll just hold him and rewind him and undo everything you think you just did and bring him back to my side. And I do think at that point, Deku and Shigaraki might fight All For One. And now the interesting thing to the scenario now that adds a whole new shuffle to it is All For One is going to age until he's nothing. So that means All For One's going to age from his, like, whatever age he is now to, I'm sure, his 40s and his 30s. I know he is very old because he has been around for a long time, but eventually I do think we are going to see what All For One looked like as a teenager, and then even honest, as, like, a kid, right? Like the kid that was reading the comic book, 60 that Yoichi is going to look at him and think back and remember, wow, that was my brother as I remember him, before everything went wrong, before he was evil, before, like, he became this monster. This is who I remember reading comic books with. And yeah, he has to go. And I honestly think that'd be really, really sad. But my question more so is, what happens when All For One de-ages and looks like Deku? Is that why Horikoshi's doing this? Even if he's not in Deku's battlefield necessarily, and it happens in front of Endeavor, like Endeavor would see it and make that connection. I feel like that's definitely a possibility, but at the end of the day, I do kind of like the visual of Deku's final villain being like a white-haired, evil version of himself with the opposite quirk, right? Like kind of that anime trope of, like, you know, Zatch Bell, where there's like Zeno or whatever his name is, there's the opposite Zatch Bell. I think that would be fun. And again, I do think All For One is going to use literally every second of time that he has left to attack the heroes and try to get his job completed by aiding Shigaraki. So if Shigaraki is freed and he has to, like, get him back under control or just take him out and figure something out, like, I don't know how he would manage that other than just going on a blind path of destruction. And yeah, I think he's going to use every second he has left to even just go around a different battlefield, do whatever he has to do to take out as many people as possible. But I do believe before he's gone, he is going to want to go check up on Shigaraki and make sure that everything is going as planned, because kind of right now, All For One is like, hey, I'm fine with dying. I'm fine with, you know, I passed the torch on already. But if he goes to Shigaraki's area and sees that things aren't going as planned, how would he react to that, knowing that there's no way to undo the rewind that's going on his body? Like, you've lost at that point. Do you kind of just sit there and rewind yourself and explain your story and go, man, I guess I lost, I was wrong? No, I think All For One has evil plans to the very end, and there's no way he's going to accept dying and losing if he thinks things aren't going to go his way. So I do think that Deku and All For One are going to see each other before the end of My Hero Academia, but honestly, that probably doesn't really mean anything good for Hawks and Endeavor.
Okay, before I end this video, I just want to put this on the tape right here. I think, from my experience, from my thoughts, I think that All For One is pretty much using Shigaraki as a weapon. Until he gets what he wants out of him, he doesn't want anything to do with him. So, I mean, Shigaraki and All For One knew each other because, well, I mean, honestly, All For One found him first when he was a child. He took him in as his own son, and then things got a little bit weird for Shigaraki, and it kind of looked like the Doctor and All For One gave him power. And then until then, now, I think maybe, if possible, if Shigaraki and Deku does team up, and if they do defeat All For One, I don't know how they're going to go with their separate ways. I mean, they might end up being more enemies again, or maybe Shigaraki's going to probably just walk away and just forget, you know, start becoming the villain, his own villain probably, or probably just give up in retirement being the villain. Who knows? But if that really does happen, I'm looking forward to see it, because nobody likes All For One. I personally don't like him as well, and I don't think Deku doesn't realize that Shikaraki is his brother. I don't think he noticed, but it's a mystery. It's a mystery. But as part of the fact of this this manga and this chapter, it's very again interesting for here in this series, guys. It really is. So I'm looking forward to see what happens next. I mean, we got 2 weeks away, so we're pretty much going to try to get past all this manga stuff, spoilers, so we can get into the show. All right, so yeah. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's it for today's video. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys later. Peace.